After a few days of this routine, I panicked when I realized it was already Friday. This meant that I would have to return to hell, back to that terrifying home. Dustin Walpole couldn't wait to personally drive over to pick me up. Hillary, it's time to go home. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. When it came to those 5 words, Dustin's voice was full of anticipation. To him, I was like a dessert that had been prepared for a long time and was about to be served. Perhaps due to a few days of normal life, my mindset had changed. I detested the man's blatant gaze when he looked at me, and I detested his touch on my skin. I started to hesitate. I didn't want to sacrifice my body for this rotten man. Every moment at home made me extremely uncomfortable, and I felt restless in the living room. At least in the living room, under my mother's watchful eyes, Dustin wouldn't make any outrageous moves. He would still maintain his facade, but I forgot that my mother was no different from Dustin, so how could she stand on my side? Under Dustin's signal, Kelly gritted her teeth and went upstairs. Already sensitive, after noticing Kelly going upstairs, I also wanted to leave immediately, but Dustin acted faster than me. His large hand wrapped around my waist, his eyes dark and unclear, staring at my lips. Hillary, you're all grown up now. The man sighed, suddenly hugging me tightly, the same posture as when Alexis hugged me that day. Unfortunately, I didn't show any shy expression. The heavy smell of oil and smoke in the man's arms made me nauseous, and I instinctively resisted. To my surprise, this action angered the man. He raised his palm, his expression contorted, wanting to slap me. I reflexively closed my eyes, not waiting for the pain to come. The doorbell of the villa suddenly rang. In an instant, the man threw me on the sofa, and as I heard him grumbling while going to open the door, my eyes were dull and indifferent. Yuri trespassing. I can sue you. Hearing Dustin's angry voice, I looked at him in surprise. I saw Alexis wearing a black coat, walking straight toward me. Perhaps seeing my helpless expression, Alexis directly covered my face with his clothes, then picked me up and left that dreadful place. Why are you here? My vision was obscured by clothes, making it hard to see Alexis's expression. After hesitating and asking, my hand clenched the hem of my clothes tightly as it hung down. Perhaps my voice was too soft. Alexis didn't pay any attention to me. All I could hear was the boy's breathing and the sound of his shoes hitting the ground. After about 10 minutes, Alexis roughly threw me into the car. Before I could react, the boy had already grabbed my ankle, pulling me over, tearing at my clothes as if releasing pent-up frustration. Even though I had intentions of seducing Alexis, at this moment, my initial reaction was to resist. I kept saying no, but Alexis's actions did not stop. He had his way with me in the car over and over again. When I opened my eyes, it was already dusk, and a man was sitting by the bed. Looking into his eyes, I knew that this man was Alexis's alter ego. Are you awake? I'll bring the food up. Alexis somewhat anxiously handed me warm water and then hurriedly left. People say that love and desire are intertwined. I think, no matter what, it seems like I have successfully left a mark in Alexis's heart. It appears that my second plan has succeeded. Everything that happened before, Dustin's insults towards me, Kelly's indifference, Alexis's visit, all were within my calculations. I blinked, coldly wiped away the tears streaming down my face. Calmly, I picked up my phone and sent a message to Dustin, pretending to be scared. At the same time, I sent a message to Kelly roughly saying that Alexis wanted to marry me, but Dustin was against it. I knew that in Kelly's mind, I was a burden. Who wouldn't want to truly possess their lover? Alexis is the son of the richest man in our city, and Kelly naturally knows him. As long as I am married off, Dustin naturally wouldn't have the ability to possess me again, and their days would be happy and joyful as she wished. Dustin replied quickly, sending a video call directly. I looked at the love bite on my neck, slapped myself a few times, rubbed my eyes, and answered the video call with red eyes. Dustin. I gazed at myself on the phone, fragile and beautiful, like a rose forcibly plucked. This beauty, coveted by him for so long, did not belong to him. I looked at Dustin's flushed face, coldly sneering inside. Dustin, save me. As tears streamed down my face, Dustin's anger reached its peak. Before he hung up the call, I clearly saw Kelly's figure. What would happen next was self-evident. With a crisp sound of the door opening, I looked up to see Alexis walking over with porridge. The rising steam in the bowl blurred my expression. In the quiet room, the only sound was the crisp sound of the spoon hitting the bowl. I will take responsibility for you. Holding the spoon, I looked at Alexis, who was making a vow in front of me, and tears streamed down my face abruptly. After our lovemaking, my slightly red eyes and the tears falling down acted as a catalyst, pushing his emotions to the peak. Alexis awkwardly pulled me into his arms, asking me what was wrong. I wouldn't miss such a good opportunity. So, I exaggerated and spoke ill of Dustin, and as for my mother, Kelly, I portrayed her as a pitiful woman in distress, someone who had been robbed of her wealth and couldn't fight back. Once the first impression was formed, Alexis would unconsciously place me and Kelly Patton in the victim's role. This way, when news of Kelly's death reached Alexis, he would understand that I would be the next victim. The novel made it clear that Alexis's alter ego wouldn't act recklessly. He was good at biding his time. Only when the main personality was in danger would the alter ego come out. And my next step was to put Alexis in a dangerous position. Therefore, I needed Alexis's alter alter ego to hold me in his heart and believed that I needed saving. Back when I was at school and spending time with Alexis, the reason he fell into a deep sleep every night was that on the afternoon I first visited Alexis's house, while he was showering, I pretended to look afraid. I was the female lead of an erotic novel, and those so-called romantic encounters I had experienced countless times in my past life, so there were no ripples in my heart. The reason I acted scared was that I kept suggesting to myself, Alexis's bathroom had one-way glass, you could see outside from inside, but not the other way around. The later reform of the school dormitory system proved that the expression I put on that day was very successful. His alter ego successfully held me in his heart. I wanted to give my body to Alexis, but not to his main personality, but to his alter ego. I remember clearly that the author of this book mentioned a ridiculous setting. In the book, those who couldn't have the female lead would endlessly desire her, and those who had the female lead for the first time would endlessly want to possess her and eliminate the ants around her. I perfectly exploited this setting. I looked up at Alexis's angry and shocked expression, and I collapsed in the boy's arms. When news of Kelly's death came on a Monday, I heard the news and immediately turned to look at Alexis, my face filled with fear. Alexis's eyes flickered, and he silently held my hand. I knew he was comforting me, but I wasn't sad at that moment. Instead, I felt somewhat pleased. This game, now down to the last move. As the daughter of the victim, I was soon interrogated by the police. As I had imagined, the police found evidence and motive of Dustin Walpole killing Kelly Patton. The dagger and the inheritance certificate I placed in Kelly's room played a significant role. The only regret was that Dustin Walpole had disappeared. The police wanted to protect me to prevent Dustin from harming me. I nodded quietly, agreeing on the surface to the police protection, while secretly devising another plan. A plan that could harm both Dustin Walpole and Alexis Marson. In the morgue, I saw Kelly's body. As a daughter, I hated Kelly, resenting that she had never loved me. As a woman, I found her truly pitiful. Hillary, Alexis's voice came when I had my back to him. When I turned around, my face was already full of tears. Alexis, you are the only one I can trust now. I threw myself into Alexis's arms. At the angle I designed, Alexis could see my vulnerable neck and the corners of my eyes that were slightly red. I watched Alexis's throat continuously swallowing, and his hot body against mine, secretly sneering in my heart. This feeling was truly disgusting. The only problem now is how to make Alexis and Dustin meet. At the moment, I don't even know where Dustin Walpole is. All I can do is wait. To create an opportunity for Dustin, I purposely moved out of the school and back to my home. Looking at the bracelet on my hand, I couldn't help but think of what Alexis said when he gave it to me. Hillary, do you like this bracelet? It's this year's new style. When Alexis handed it to me, I clearly saw a flash of red light in the decoration of the bracelet. After Alexis left, I opened the decoration of the bracelet and found a locator inside. As long as I have this bracelet, Alexis can know where I am at any time. It has been 5 days since Kelly passed away. During these 5 days, there have been plainclothes police around the villa. Now, as my adulthood is approaching, I can't help but feel anxious about when Dustin will appear. The turning point came on Friday when I had just finished school and got into the family car. Drive back home. I closed my eyes, feeling a bit tired, and softly said to the driver, there were no police accompanying me on the way from school to my home. One reason is that the school I attend is an aristocratic school with very strict security. Secondly, the distance between the school and the villa is very close, only about a 10-minute drive. After I finished speaking, the driver did not respond, and the atmosphere inside the car was eerily quiet. Suddenly, I had a thought in my mind. I opened my eyes and looked forward cautiously. Sure enough, the driver was Dustin Walpole. At this moment, Dustin looked very bad, wearing a tattered denim jacket, looking exhausted and unkempt. Seeing that I recognized him, the man glanced at me with bloodshot eyes and sternly warned me, "Don't call the police." I clearly saw a dagger beside Dustin's hand. As I looked at the scenery passing by outside the window, I understood that this was the road out of the city. While quietly sobbing, I told Dustin how Alexis had forced me, and secretly set a timed message on my phone. It is said that the plot of erotic novels is unrealistic, and today I have witnessed it. After saying these words, Dustin's attitude towards me clearly changed. After the car drove out of the city, Dustin's posture relaxed. He kept scanning my body through the rearview mirror. After being trained by Alexis these days, my body is obviously sexier and more perfect than before. As the car drove to a warehouse in the outskirts, Dustin quickly pulled me out of the car and pushed me into the dim warehouse. The warehouse was damp and rotten, with a black spring mattress in the middle of the floor and several boxes of instant noodles beside it. It seemed like this was Dustin's hiding place for the past few days. Before I could think too much, a strong force came from the front, and I was pressed onto the mattress by Dustin. Naturally, I didn't want to have a sexual relationship with Dustin, so I resisted a few times. Perhaps not seeing a woman for a long time, Dustin's temper was surprisingly good, letting me push him a few times. But this illusion vanished abruptly when Dustin saw the kiss marks on my collarbone. His smile quickly disappeared, and he slapped me hard. "You slut. I've raised you for so long, I can't bear to touch you. And you let that brat touch you." Dustin cursed angrily, pulling at my school uniform without any mercy. At this moment, I was no longer a delicate and delicious treat on display in the window for Dustin, but rather a piece of discarded wrapping paper on the ground. I bided my time, not resisting at first, which made Dustin even more smug. In his mind, I was just a slut. When the alarm clock went off, I began to struggle violently and kept trying to reach into Dustin's pocket to take out a dagger. My strength was like flirting to Dustin initially, and he didn't pay much attention. But as the dagger cut through Dustin's palm, he started to curse and directly punched me hard in the abdomen. Damn it! Dare to hurt me. Due to the pain, I involuntarily let go of the dagger in my hand. Indeed, you and your mother are both bitches. Only pain can make you obey. Dustin spat heavily on me. I was covered in wounds, my clothes loose, with no resistance left. Dustin sneered, about to take off his pants, when his actions were interrupted by a flying brick. Let go of her. Damn it. Due to anger, the boy's voice was sharp. Looking at Alexis and the police behind him, I couldn't help but smile. Timing was perfect. Even though I was dirty all over, surrounded by chaos, I could still see clearly, a bright future beckoning me. The brick thrown by Alexis did not cause substantial harm to Dustin. Dustin held his head, his eyes cold as he stood up. In that moment of lowering his head, he naturally saw the smile on my face. To others, that smile seemed like the joy of being rescued, but to Dustin, it was a naked mockery. Even though he was already detained by the police, Dustin still shot me and Alexis with eyes full of hatred. Emotions were running high, only missing one catalyst. I had just stood up when Alexis rushed over without hesitation, not caring about the dirt on me. I was stunned for a moment, but then changed my expression, glanced at Dustin, mouthed a few words, and raised my head with a pitiful look in my eyes. Alexis was familiar with this look. It was the same look I gave him the first night he came out of the bathroom. In a few short seconds, I didn't know what Alexis was thinking, or how Dustin managed to break free from the police, successfully grabbing the knife I had been holding all along. With a swift motion, Dustin's knife pierced through my stomach. It was at that moment that Alexis viciously smashed a brick on Dustin's head. To me, everything seemed to pause as I remembered their grim expressions when they tried to kill each other. Finally, I succeeded. After waking up in the hospital, the female police officer in charge of me told me everything. Alexis was taken away by his parents and confined at home, no longer having any connection with me. His parents also gave me a bank card with 50 million, asking me to spare their son. As for Dustin Walpole, the murderer, he was soon to be executed. He had one request, to see me before his death. Seeing the female police officer's compassionate eyes, I felt indifferent, hesitated for a moment, and reluctantly agreed. If possible, I really wanted to witness the scene of Dustin Walpole's execution with my own eyes. Dustin Walpole, dressed in prison clothes, looked desolate. The first thing he said when he saw me was, "Hillary Stabler, you did this on purpose. You planned all this since I married Kelly Patton." Dustin Walpole's eyes were terrifyingly bright as he shouted these words. I shook my head in terror, looking scared. At this point, he was already a caged bird. Who would believe his nonsense? I was just a poor little girl threatened by a murderer. Who else could I harm? As the prison guard led Dustin Walpole away, I lifted a sarcastic smile and mouthed a few words to him. Dustin Walpole understood my meaning clearly, and his body immediately went limp. Leaving the gloomy prison, the glaring sunlight surrounded me, dispelling the darkness on me. My tomorrow was about to arrive.